Alright guys, today we're going to be comparing the 2018 S9 Plus to the 2025 S25 Ultra here. I always love doing these comparisons just to see the things that these phones have gained and lost and how things have improved over time here. The first thing that stands out here is the hardware here. So you can see the S series kind of went from looking like the S series, how it looks here, to more of a Note phone with the S25 Ultra here. And yeah, it kind of switched to that Note design around the S22 Ultra, and it just kind of has like boxy shape to it, as the S series phones, they used to have kind of like that, kind of curve to it. But the interesting thing about the hardware on these two devices is that, for a plus size phone, the S9 Plus here is pretty small in comparison to the S25 here. The phones have just gotten massive over time here. I really do love the color on the S9 Plus as well too, and the camera setup I think looks pretty cool. There is a physical fingerprint scanner right here that works pretty well, and then also what's pretty cool about the S9 is that you actually do have a heart rate sensor on here as well, and it actually does work. So that's another like little cool thing about it. This phone was really hardware packed with a lot of cool things. We do have still the headphone jack, and we got the SD card support. This phone is also kind of sharp on the sides here, like the S25 Ultra here, but the camera difference is pretty big here. You can see the camera's just gotten huge in comparison. It looks like one lens is like both of these lenses right here. So yeah, the cameras have gotten huge, and of course the S series has merged with the Note series basically. So you get your built-in stylus now, and you also don't have Bluetooth capability anymore. It seems like throughout the years they're actually taking a lot of hardware features away. And the S9 Plus does have an iris scanner up here too, so this phone was really packed with a lot of stuff. And yeah, so I guess the hardware improvements is, the matte finish. You don't really get those smudges like you can kind of see on the S9 Plus. And the fingerprint scanner is now in the display, which is fine because, it's fast, it works. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the hardware difference. But I don't think the S9 Plus looks too outdated. I think it's still like, it looks like an older phone, but it still has a very like really clean, nice look to it. It's not like it's an ugly phone. So let's talk about the hardware difference. Alright, so let's talk about the display difference here, guys. The first thing that actually pops out between these two displays is not like the slim bezels and stuff like that, but yeah, like you can see the bezels are huge on the S9 Plus compared to the S25. They've really gotten the bezels extremely thin. And the thing that popped out to me when I first looked at it was the color difference. The S9 Plus looks way more like vivid and colorful than the S25 Ultra. Now, some people say that it's not color accurate or whatever. Even if you turn the vividness slider up on the S25 Ultra, it's still not as colorful as this display. That's kind of the first thing that popped out to me. But of course, the S9 Plus display is still really good. Samsung has been making really good panels for a very long time. So this phone has a 6.2 inch Super AMOLED display. It's HDR10, and it also is 1440p with 529 for the PPI. And it's just a really nice display still. Like, yeah, the bezels are big and stuff like that, but the panel itself still looks really, really good. I have no complaints with that. The upgrades that they've made throughout the years is that, of course, the bezels have gotten a lot slimmer, and the display on the Ultra is 6.9 inches. It's LTPO. It's 120 hertz. It's kind of the thing that really pops out. I think the biggest thing here, if you're outdoors, is really the max brightness is now 2600 nits on the S25 Ultra. And that's one thing that really stands out if you're outdoors. And it's also 1440p, and you also do have 498 for the PPI. And also kind of underrated thing is the anti-reflection coating, as you guys can see. I don't know if it's translating in the video well, but you can see the lights are much harsher on the S9 Plus. So it's a very little cool thing. It's very subtle, but it's a very cool thing. But that's pretty much the display difference. I'm really impressed with how well Samsung has been doing in the display department. See if the speed difference and just overall general use is really different here. We got the Snapdragon 845, 64 gigs and 4 gigs of RAM, the 8 Elite, 256 gigs and 12 gigs of RAM. And let's just open up Subway Surf here. Definitely a difference there, nothing too crazy. See if this can play Subway Surf still, really. Yeah, it can still play Subway Surf really smooth. No issues at all. Okay. YouTube. Okay. Yeah, this is honestly not like it's not like it's super slow or anything like that. It's still, decently fast. The scrolling's not too bad. It's just the biggest difference, like I said, the big difference is really the 120 hertz. It makes a huge difference in how everything looks and feels. As far as the gaming performance, the S9 Plus can still game pretty well. Let's see. Yeah, it can still play at smooth extreme here. And it's still, pretty smooth for the most part. It's not laggy or anything like that. And it's actually really smooth. I think like the one thing I remember about this phone is like for like longer periods of gaming, it would kind of heat up a little bit. But of course, gaming performance has gotten extremely good these days, especially with these newer chips. You can game for longer without taking such a massive hit to the battery. And also, for games like PUBG and a lot of other games, Genshin and Call of Duty, you can play at very good frame rates like PUBG, 120 frames. It's like a night and day difference, and that goes across the board for like emulators and stuff like that. So we've actually come a really long way for like power users being able to play games at really efficient settings without it taking crazy hits to the battery life. People who play a lot of emulators, the PSP emulator, Dolphin emulator. Let's check out these speakers at max volume. Yeah, it's like 3 times. It sounds like it's like 3 times louder. The bass is way louder. It's just an overall, huge speaker upgrade compared to the S9 Plus, which really doesn't sound that bad. Kind of sounds like more like a mid-range phone speaker now. But yeah, that is a massive difference in terms of sound, and just the overall sound just in general. It's just a way more balanced sound on the S25 for sure. Some of the new things that they're really doing, and a lot of people, you would think that the OS has changed, like the overall visuals have changed. As you can see, it's been kind of like, to me, it kind of looks a little bit more like iOS now, One UI. But like a lot of the stuff in One UI is still here on the S9 Plus. So Samsung desktop support and, a lot of these features, dark mode and stuff like that. It's not like Android 10 is extremely outdated compared to, One UI 7. And the biggest change here with One UI 7 that they're going to really be pushing is this AI stuff. So the AI stuff is kind of like the Gemini being baked into the power button now, and the circle to search and all that stuff. And yeah, so that's like the biggest thing with the software is really the powerful AI features you do have now, which I never really use, but it's definitely a big thing. It's going to continue to be more of a big thing with smartphone OS. The camera upgrade here is a pretty big one as well too. So we now have, well, we'll start with the S9. So we do have a 12 megapixel standard and a 12 megapixel telephoto. There's no ultra wide on this camera at this time. It has 2 times optical zoom and it goes up to 10 times. You also do have an 8 megapixel selfie that has a 2 megapixel dedicated iris scanner as well. Like I said, very cool thing to have. That also shoots in 1440p, the front camera, and then the back camera, it can still shoot in 4K 60, which is nice. Now, the S25 Ultra has a 200 megapixel standard, a 10 megapixel telephoto 3 times, and then another 50 megapixel periscope telephoto that does 5 times. That'll get you all the way up to 100 times zoom, and then you also do have a 50 megapixel ultra wide. This can also shoot in 8K 24 and 30 with a 12 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 60. Now, the battery life on the S9 Plus, at the time, it was okay. It's a 3,500 milliamp hour battery. It was okay. But the S25 Ultra's battery life, even if you had a new battery in this, it's like a night and day difference. And honestly, Samsung flagship phones, the battery life didn't get really good on these bigger flagships until like the S23 Ultra, actually. That's when we saw a significant jump in battery life due to just chip efficiency and stuff like that. But yeah, this does such a amazing job with screen on time. The S25 Ultra, it's got a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. The crazy thing is Samsung's charging speeds have not really increased that much throughout the years. The S25 still has a 45 watt charging. You do have wireless and reverse wireless charging. You do have a 15 watt charging on the S9 Plus, and this does have wireless charging only. So it's really interesting to look back at these, or at this phone in particular here. It's still a very beautiful piece of hardware, and just a lot of really cool, interesting things going on here, like the heart rate scanner, the iris scanner, having the fingerprint scanner, the headphone jack. You also do have SD card support. It's just got a lot going on for it, which again, the S25 is an excellent phone, right? It's a really good phone, but they've just taken a lot out of these phones, I think, prematurely. The SD card support, you could say that, the headphone jack, but the pen not having the Bluetooth and stuff like that, just slowly kind of taking stuff out. But again, you do have a lot of very good upgrades with this phone as well. So yeah, guys, very cool. What do you guys think?